When I first started, I thought the look had to be like a suit and tie the same way that everyone else did. And you look at it, it's like everyone's on bus benches, the same old business card. And you've got just this history of people repeating and copying exactly what's been done before. And so in that moment, I decided like, I'm going to carve my own path and I'm going to create our own brand. But too often in branding and marketing, they put out this facade and this image and this brand that really isn't deep down who they are. And then it's a big miss. And then that authenticity, that it doesn't come through.
How do you build a massive personal brand and use it to absolutely dominate your market? What is up, everybody? It's another episode of the Reside Platform Podcast. My name is Sunit Agrawal, and I'll be your host today. And we have a really special guest for me, because there's some history here that I will talk about. A very special guest, perfect to answer that first question, Mr. Kris Lindahl. Kris, how the hell are you, dude?
Sunit, what's happening? I appreciate the opportunity to be here and spend time with you. I'm excited to see where we land this plane today.
Yes, dude. So the little bit of history is one of the first online interviews I ever did with Lab Code Agents was the first time that I met you. And that may have been 2017 or 2018. And dude, I remember that call changed my friggin' whole perspective, bro. So number one, thank you. But I asked you, it was a typical type of real estate thing. I said, dude, how many houses did you sell last year? And you said like 1,500 in 2018. So Kris, let's start this one with that same question. Just out of my curiosity, how many did you sell last year? How many transactions?
So last year, right around the 2,000 range, which was quite a ways, I would say, under what the peak of the market was. But I think everyone is, has made adjustments, and I think our priorities have shifted too. Right.
Yes.
So we've got more focused. And I think that's, when we're running large businesses and you've got all kinds of opportunities, I think the focus key of it is the most important of all of it.
Yes. It's not always about the biggest numbers, always, right?
No, I mean, I think there's so much more to it. It's are you running efficiently, right? And I think for so many people, you look at 2021 and you look at a lot of the mega teams, I don't think very many of them were truly running efficiently. And when I look back now, I'm like, if we would have been where we're at today with what we know and how our systems and processes are in order today, we would have done over 10,000 homes.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, I was one of the mega teams that had a great 2021, but we did it by just the seat of our pants, kind of, right?
Yeah, 100%.
We just figured it out. Let me read your bio for the few people who might not know you. Kris Lindahl is an inspiring entrepreneur who has built, I love this line, one of the most infamous personal brands in real estate history. As the founder and CEO of a portfolio of companies, Kris creates and executes a never-ending stream of innovative marketing strategies, which has literally made him, we're going to talk about this, a household name to millions of people. Forced to support himself from a young age, Kris rose from humble beginnings to a multi-state icon and thought leader. Absolutely. Dude, household name.
Yeah, I know. It seems like, it's crazy when I think about where we started, right? I mean, from 2009 is when I got licensed to where we're at today. And the things that we needed to do along the way were it was crazy. It's just that savvy, relentless, just on a tear, right? I mean, one thing after another. And I think what I did better than most was I just never quit. And I always took what I learned and I executed with it. And I just kept getting better every day. And most things I didn't get right, but I learned from it to make it better next time.
Massive action, right? Just took massive action. Why did you decide to get into real estate in 2009?
So I had a friend, it's funny. I had a friend that was in charge, it was a real estate attorney in charge of liquidating some real estate developments that went wrong. He said, Kris, you should get your real estate license and I'll give you all these properties. And I got my license in a hurry and I got none of the properties. So then I was standing there like, all right, I'm not equipped or skilled or I can't deliver or provide any value to him at this point because I don't know enough to execute on it. And so, but for whatever reason, I decided that I'm going to get my license, and I did, and that's how I started.
Awesome. What were some of the first big challenges you had to overcome and just getting starting and starting to build?
Well, I think the thing that gets overlooked, especially for agents that are on teams and the environment that we're in, is generating a high quality lead is not easy to do, right? It is not easy to do. But if you look at the run up with a lot of mega teams that created brands and really created this magnetic thing of like opportunities coming in, I think there's a lot of people that have taken for granted how hard it is to get a customer to the closing table. Right. And so when I first got started, I didn't know that. And I had to learn that firsthand with no training, no background in marketing, like self-taught the entire way. And now a lot of agents that are getting in the industry that are on teams, they don't know it either because they come in and it's like, here's 50 appointments. Here's a database full. Here's more tomorrow, even if you don't perform on what we already gave you. Right. It's just like they're growing on trees. And so for me, I had the opposite. I didn't have anything. And I remember, I don't want to truly date myself, but when I first started, they actually still had floor duty where you sat in the office and wait and hope that someone walked into the front desk and said, I need real estate help. And that was really how I started. And then I just, I didn't have a budget. I had time. I had no money. Right. So everything that I was doing was, it was door knocking. It was cold calling. It was social media back in the day or organic Facebook type stuff. And so that's really how I started. So I started with really just, that boots on the ground in the trenches type stuff.
Yes. Try everything. Right. And then we got to today with this massive, massive personal brand. And dude, people dress up as you for Halloween, right? Like,
that's right.
Tell me about that, please. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, a lot of people. I think there's been so many amazing things. I think the Halloween costumes and the amount of people in the areas that we serve that dress up for me it's an honor. It's weird to me because like every time that I get a message, and I get several messages every day from people in the markets that we're in around something to do with our brand and how they're implementing that into whatever they're doing. And so, from stadiums. We have we're the Minnesota Twins official real estate company. And so
awesome.
We have the 7th inning stretch and all the kids standing up, doing our, our brand image and all that. So it's really taken a life of its own. And I think that's when marketing is done right. And when you have the right branding strategy, you are no longer the one that needs to execute on it. Right. It takes a life of its own. And that's where we're at today.
Bro, that is so money what you just said. If you guys who are watching and listening to this, go back and rewind what Kris just said. Why don't you explain to people that don't know what the brand is and just give some more information about it?
Yeah, of course. So when we first came up with this concept, there's a lot of reasons that really go into this, but I wanted it to be different, right? And I wanted to tie into the way I grew up and really coming from nothing and having to, push super hard the entire way through to get to where we're at today. And so I was brainstorming around like, what could we do that just really changes the way that people perceive our brand versus others? And I think what I landed on ultimately was the arms out brand that is everywhere. And I saw like, even for myself, like I'll be open and honest here. When I first started, I thought the look had to be like a suit and tie the same way that everyone else did. And you look at it, it's like everyone's on bus benches, the same old business card. And you've got just this history of people repeating and copying exactly what's been done before. And so in that moment, I decided like I'm going to carve my own path and I'm going to create our own brand that no one can replicate. And the reason they can't is because they're not me. That doesn't mean that they can't go out and create a world-class brand of their own, but we created one that matches my personality. And so for me, I would say that I think the most important part of creating a brand in general, especially a personal side, is that whatever you put out there, you can't wear a mask. It has to genuinely be you. And so to me, every single day that I'm out in our communities and I'm connecting with people, it doesn't feel like work because it's me. Right. And but too often in branding and marketing, they put out this facade and this image and this brand that really isn't deep down who they are. Right. And then it's a big miss. And then that authenticity that it doesn't come through. Right. And when you miss that, that's the issue.
Dude, so, and you guys have a slogan that you use too. Can you tell everybody about that? Our tagline?
Yeah. So we actually, I'll share a couple of different things that we have. So be generous is something that we're super focused on and giving back our time, treasures, and talents. But one thing that we just rolled out in the last 30 days is I realized over the past several years that a lot of companies have lost their way when it comes to core values. Right. So things went, work remotely to hybrid to all the things in between for so many different companies. And no one has really readdressed who they are. And so for us, we went with the acronym Let's Go, because that's what I believe in. It's what I say all the time. And so it's learning, empathy, tenacity, staying positive, generosity, and owning it. And so those are our revised core values, but also leaving the generosity piece in there, which was a foundation of how we got to where we were today. And I think, I spent, it's as basic as that phrase says, I spent a year coming up with that every day, writing down words, writing down like, what are the things that people love about our community? What frustrates me? What triggers me that I'm like, there is zero tolerance for this inside of our organization. And so when you do that type of work, it makes your branding, it makes your marketing, it makes your sales, your ops, your community, it makes it all stronger because now people coming in believe and feel that same thing. And so for us, like, I think that you take the brand, but if you don't have the right core values, you've got to miss. And so it's super important that you have both of those.
Dude, I was reading The Advantage this morning by Patrick Lencioni. I don't know if you read that book or not, but I'm on exactly this chapter that talks about this. Like literally an hour ago, I was reading this chapter. But what you've done, I think, is incredible because whether it's be generous or let's go, the marketing slogan is also the core value of the whole organization, right? So like if an employee has a question on how to act, well, they know. Be generous. That's what we stand for. Right? That's really good, dude.
Yeah, but you tied in. And I think the mistake that so many people make is they try to create a brand, but advertiser fatigue kicks in. Right. And so it's like, oh, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to show up here. I don't want to say this. I don't want to do this. And so many people rarely follow through with the level of work that's required to create a massive brand. And so for those, I'd say don't start unless you are fully committed long term to doing the things that are required to get there. And it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah. And it sounds like the first thing is nailing your core values and what your business stands for.
It is. It is. And it sounds so basic, and everyone will throw out EOS and scaling up and Rockefeller habits and the rest of it. It sounds so simple, but the real way to test it is to evaluate inside your organization if every single person there can recite what you believe in, who you are, and then you can go to all of the leaders and all of the people in your company and say, are we enforcing these core values all day, every day, with the way that we level people up, with the way that we hire and onboard, with the way that we fire? And the answer for most companies is they really aren't following through at that level. And so if you're not, then you've got a core value problem of some sort. Either the words or the mission isn't quite right, or there's something that you have to go back to the drawing board. And it's the foundational item that people skip and they go so far ahead and they miss it. They miss it so often. And I think once you get that foundational thing right, then you can start going to the next level. And now, if you're a founder watching this, or you're a team leader or broker owner, and the personal brand is you, the core values are yours. Unless you have a board of directors, unless you have other owners, like the core values are you, right? With a personal brand, if you have the core values tied to where you're going with the branding side of things, you can get really dialed in a big way because it's who you are.
Totally. Yeah. So good. It seems like a lot of these founders, whatever the, type of company might be, they are told from a book, one of the ones that you named, that they need to have a mission and core values, and they go online and find someone and say, "Oh yeah, well that should be us too. So I'm going to do that too."
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
And the
I know.
words don't mean anything.
They don't mean anything. And they're disingenuous, right? So everyone in your company knows like, hey, we don't live this, because the words are sort of irrelevant. It's the actions of the core values that matter. That's how I measure what are the core values inside of an organization. Like, what is everyone doing?
Yeah.
Right? It's not the words that are on some wall that no one knows what they are, or
In the
some
break
plaque
room,
in the
yeah.
corner. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, what is actually happening day to day here? Like, and you can feel that in some people. It's all ties into the culture. And I think a lot of people, if you look at where things were, like everything shifted for a lot of companies, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, and there's still a lot, there's a massive amount of opportunity, but you have to be self-aware of where we were and where we're going, right? And so because like things have lightened up a little bit from where they were, it gave us an opportunity over the past 24 months to really dive deep into everything that we were doing and go like, okay, what should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And so evaluating and asking yourselves those questions, because I think too often people continue to do the same old thing, and none of this is static. It's fluid, right? So the economy changes, the industry changes, all kinds of changes going on. Right? And so right. So we got to pivot, and we constantly have to be adapting. And I think too many people are trying to do the same old thing that they've always been doing, expecting a different result, which is like insanity.
That is literally insanity, to do the same shit every day and expect a different result.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say one other thing, Sunit, that I think is really important for people that are thinking about their personal brand and where it's at today. One of the things that I believe is happening right now is that everyone that has a brand of some sort, which everyone does, most people that are at the real high level of brands, the order of where people are at in a market is probably going to stay that way for a while because of the economic and the real estate conditions.
Sure.
So rarely are you going to have people that are going to come from nowhere and jump to the most well-known real estate brand in a market, because the macro conditions are very different. And you look at a lot of these mega teams from 2009, the whole run up to 2021. I mean, it was very favorable conditions with a lot of tailwinds, right?
Absolutely.
And so now you have significantly less homes being sold. You still have a lot of leads being generated, but revenue for some companies is more challenging than it was when there was 7+ million homes sold. There was just more opportunities.
Absolutely.
And so it's still at 4 million homes sold. There's a lot of opportunities and everyone can do what they want to do. But I just don't think you're going to see a lot of real estate companies that are all of a sudden going to come from nowhere and are going to ride the wave up. And I know a lot of people that have built brands in their markets. There was so much waste because the conditions were favorable. And now you have to be so much more optimized with every dollar, especially on the mass media side of things. And so it's going to be very challenging for companies and teams that are, or brokers that are really trying to create a large brand. It's going to be challenging because the times aren't the same.
It seems like the biggest opportunity for a lot of these business owners to create a brand right now would be organic.
100%. Yep. And the issue that so many people have is they have this copycat syndrome where they go out and try to do what someone else is doing. And the last thing you want to do, I'm just telling everyone right now, is go pick a battle in someone else's backyard that you can't win. Right. And I see this happen all the time. And when we really look at it's like 1 million paper cuts. We have all the agents in our market, and we'll get an agent or a team leader, a broker owner in one little area of something we do that will step in, and we will just destroy them every single time because they're trying to get started and we're 15 years of momentum into it. And they just can't do the same things. And so you have to find an area where, this is back to the old school farming type process, where you start looking at areas where there isn't as much, when you look at the capture rate and you look at the absorption rate, obviously that, some of the, how many turns are happening in neighborhoods important, but who is the top agent or team leader in that area and what capture rate do they have? Right? So it's the same thing with anything you're doing. You don't walk into something where someone's completely dominating because you think it works or it looks like it works, and you're not equipped with the right budget to go head on to that. You're gonna lose every time. And so when I started the brand, all the things that I was doing, I was the only one there. Right? Every single thing I was doing. And if there was something that was really crowded, I'm like, that's a red ocean. That's not where I'm looking to swim. I'm going over the blue ocean over here. And so I've always thought about that. It's like, and now, especially you look at all the conversations that are happening in real estate with the changes, everyone's in the red ocean posting all the same stuff over and over again, over and over and over again. Everyone's uneducated. Their interpretation of what's even happening or what this means, they have no clue. There's going to be more changes likely, right? And so I haven't said one thing. I'm like, I'm just going to continue to do what we do. We're over here in the blue ocean, and we know that every day if we do these things, we're going to continue to have success. And everyone else is spun out of control in the red ocean, creating mass confusion, which when people are uneasy, uneducated, or scared, are never going to reach out to those agents. So it's just fascinating to me to watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating. I was talking to Chep about that too. I was like, man, it's only a few of us who haven't posted anything about the NAR settlement. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, you read half the stuff that's posted, and you could tell that people clearly have no idea what's even going on.
Yeah. Good reason to stay away from social media, right? Yeah, and encourage everyone listening to this and all of our agents, don't get your news for anything from social.
That's right.
So let's get back to the brand, because I really want to nail it for selfish reasons still, right? I want to start doing traditional media. Where do I start?
Yeah, so traditional is obviously it's a huge umbrella, right? I mean, I think
so non-digital.
Yeah. So for the first area that I started in, doesn't necessarily have to be the first for everyone else, is I started with a small neighborhood of 500 homes. Okay. And twice a month, postcard, twice a month. They were bad. The message was wrong. It was no good, but it was consistent. And so I was showing up over and over again. Then it was, okay, let's add some community events. Every quarter, we're going to do a community event at a local park. We're going to bring everyone together. And as I started to get a little traction, I'm like, okay, let's go to 750 homes. And I slowly just started expanding this ring. And then it was half the city, then it was a full city, then it was multiple cities, then it was counties. And I just kept widening that out as I had more success. And I always led with revenue.
Yes.
Right. Yes. With revenue. So as I had more success, I reinvested those dollars and continued to grow. And so as I found more success there, then I implemented like signs, like bandit signs, like, oh, I've got another listing over here, another listing. So I would have areas saturated with signs, open house signs, postcards. And then I started adding to the frequency. Then it was newsletters. And it was just, that's the way that I started. And I did that for years on before I ever got into anything else. Right. Sure. So it's very focused on that. And so all these same things still work today, of course. Right. It just takes consistency and focus, which most people don't have.
Yep.
And then I started adding in more social media. Then I started creating Facebook events in the community. So then I started taking what I was connecting traditionally, and I started integrating that into the social side of things.
Sure.
Right. So it's like, okay, you get these things in the mail, you see my signs, you're attending my events. Now we're connected in Facebook groups. Now we're connected online. And so then you get to see who I am, which is back to what we shared earlier around the core values. Right. So it's one thing to say like, oh, okay, this is what he does for a living. It's another for them to watch on social media, like, this is who he is and this is what he believes in. Right. And people are going to be, of course, highly skeptical if all you post is your 30-second commercial every time you make a post online. They want to see your real life. And that's why people make a decision to connect and to follow you. And so that's how I started it. I mean, it was very simple, right? Very simple. Not easy, but simple.
Sure.
Right. So it was just like every day, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Couldn't hire anyone, didn't have resources to bring anyone on. It was the work that I needed to do. And so that's how we started. That was the early days.
And then how did it get into radio, billboards? Do you do TV?
Yes. Yep, I do. I think I've tried and done everything that you could possibly do in marketing and branding. So I started with radio. Okay. I started with radio and it was bad. It was really bad. I didn't know how to buy spots. I didn't know when to run them. I didn't have the right analytics to understand how, the frequency and reach works in radio. And so I added radio and nothing was happening for months and months and months. Right. I get a few people here and there and say, hey, I heard your radio spot. Like, but the phones weren't ringing. I mean, I wasn't getting anyone to fill out the website. And so where it changed for me is, I mean, like it's like anything. I think most people quit right before it's going to work. I've seen that happen too many times. And the other thing, that the mistake that people make is they don't go in with the right budget, right? So if you're like, hey, if you don't set aside 12 to 18 months of budget to go like, this is what I'm going to go do this at, it'll never work. And you see a lot of people in entrepreneurs that'll go and say like, I'm going to give it 30 days. Well, nothing works that fast. And so, no. And so what I did is, where it really started to work was back to the humanization of it. So I started listening to what people were saying about me. I started reading things that people were saying online and in person, and I incorporated that into the ads. And so I just continued to humanize myself. As like, self-deprecation, no problem. Make fun of me, cool. I like it. I can play along with it. Like, I'm not losing sleep over it. But it's also because I'm crystal clear on who I am, right? So I think some people that are unsure or uneasy about who they are at the core, when you get roasted online, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. He could do this. He could do that. It could be tough, right? But that's where I really started to learn. It's like, okay, this is what people are saying. And I think what's so important in building a brand and marketing is active listening. What are people saying? What do they like? What do they not like? What do they want? And that's what you should give them, right? You should not create what you think is going to work. You should actually find out. This is why, surveys and reviews and all those things are so critical in understanding where you're going as a company and a brand, because you're really understanding how people are thinking, which is so important in doing it. And so we started with radio. I bombed that a bunch of times. I wanted to quit a million times. I might even quit on one of the stations. Like, hey, I'm $100,000 in, and I've got nothing. This is no longer enjoyable to me. And then I went back and I went back just multiple times, and just over time, I just got what I did is I got really good at listening, and I also got really dialed in on writing copy and understanding how to create things that actually cut through. From a messaging standpoint, from direct response to branded pieces. And I started to really get honed in on that of like, how do I write this? How do I do this? And this is why today, a lot of the companies that might be on one station here or there, this is why they don't stand a chance against us, because I'm the one doing the writing. And I understand this at such a high level. And so many of these other companies that go out and do this, hire some agency or hire some company that's never been in the shoes that they're in, is not in the industry, and is totally disconnected from what it means to be an entrepreneur in your space. And for me, like I every single day I breathe, I understand exactly what is happening here. And that's how I've been able to cut through, is like, I'm listening to the feedback. I want the feedback. I want the agents in our company to tell me, hey, where are we winning? Where do we need to get better? What are the opportunities? Because that makes me so much better with anything that I put out there. And I think, the mistake that everyone makes at some point along the way when they think they're going to the 8th level of running a real estate company is leveraging themselves out of everything, right? And so what happens is you're like, okay, I've already done these things. Like, I'm just going to leverage myself out of every single thing that I ever did that was good. And I'm going to put someone else in that spot that doesn't have the historic context of your brand, of your company, and likely your industry. And now they're in the driver's seat with, tens of thousands, 100,000, millions of dollars. They're going to make the decisions around what your message is going to be, where it's going to be said, how they're going to respond. They're going to measure everything. And it's such a massive mistake for everyone to do that. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to work 100 hours a week in every single piece of their business, but the areas where it's your genius, like, it's going to be really hard to put someone in that seat and replace yourself there. And then the good news is, for the companies that do leverage themselves out, when they've got to compete against someone like me around script writing and reach and frequency and the branding, the marketing, they don't stand a shot, because that person just doesn't have the experience.
Yeah, they hire somebody out of college, right?
And you see it. I mean, you see it on social media. You see it. Well, now AI is another one, right? So people are writing things on AI. I mean, TV commercials are getting produced that way. Radio spots are getting, the society in general is getting more and more lazy, right? And so anything that they can do to hit the easy button, that's what they'd prefer to do. And so for us, like, it's not easy. I'm to be honest, it sucks. I don't like writing those spots when I have to write those spots. I never want to write them. It's not like I wake up and go like, I'm super excited to write this copy, to put this together. It sucks every single time. But I know that effort and time that I put into that will reward our company at a level that my time there will give them something that I can't contribute that level of awareness, brand, reach, frequency that I can in that 1, 2, 3 hours that I spend a month putting together that content.
I love that, dude. What's your, just out of curiosity, like what's your copywriting process?
So there's a couple different things that go on. Depends. It usually starts with notes on my phone. So when I see something or hear something in our company, I'm like, oh, and I might throw down a word, maybe a sentence, and I'll collect these thoughts over a 30-day period. Like, oh, that's interesting. That's what they said. And I'm constantly, I mean, when I'm like obsessed on asking for feedback from our company. What's happening? What are we learning? What are people saying? Where are we winning? I mean, it's like I am doing my own survey and study every single day. Right. And so I want to learn. I'm asking people in the community. If I'm at an event or wherever I'm at, I'm asking like, hey, what are you doing? How are you spending your time? How do brands impact you? What brands are you seeing right now? Why are you paying attention to them? Like I'm constantly I'm in this research phase every single day of my life, learning just as much as I possibly can through that curiosity lens, which is so important. That all the most successful entrepreneurs that I've ever spent time with or know, there's a curious component to the whole thing. Oh, what do you think about this? Oh, what do you think? What are you seeing? What are your thoughts? Like there always is some level of curiosity that really leads you to that. And so once I get that information, then I once I have it all, then I can put it together pretty quickly. But it's because I've already done the work. I've done the research. Like it's, where I think people get writer's block on anything. This could be social media, it could be whatever. It's just you start writing and you just start writing but you forgot everything that happened over the last day or week or month or year, whatever it may be. And you're trying to retain all the things in the past. It just doesn't work very well. So you have to have a process to put that information somewhere. Well, it could be a Google Doc, could be Trello, could be Monday, could be Asana, whatever management system you use. And you put that information and then it makes it so much easier to write the copy. And then if I'm taking it to a totally advanced level, then I'm writing things down on note cards, right? And I'm moving things around. I'm like, oh, let's put this here. Let's put this in this lane. Let's put that in this lane. I mean, it's how I write all my books. Like I'm laying out every single thing. And this is why when I write a book and someone reads it and they're like, wow, like you almost like read my mind. It's like, no, I did the work for so long that I'm not going to put my name on anything that isn't high quality. Like I'm not going to have AI cheat my voice and my brand ever. Like, can you use AI for some brainstorming and things like that? For sure. I mean, I think there's an opportunity, but I'm not going to replace who I am and sell out to AI because it looks easier, but then it impacts the way that people feel and see who I am, which I won't sell out that way.
Yeah, dude. So good. I've been using the app Notion and I got like this download.
Yeah.
The writer's queue where there's like, it's cool breakdown. I'll send you a screenshot because there's like a workflow to it. Anyhow, good. So I'm on the right track for how I write copy. Good.
Yes, that's right.
So in the marketing and building the brand, were there any like big moments that you can recall where you're all, oh, wow, this stuff's starting to work? Going back.
Yeah, I would say this stuff happens daily, right? So nothing's changed. Like when I put something out, whatever it is, I am looking for reactions and I'm looking for feedback. And feedback might be someone decides that they are interested in working with us and they fill out a web form, they go to a chat, they message me on social media. And it could be the opposite. Like it could be like, I'm so sick of listening to him. I'm so sick and tired of seeing him. But I'm looking for those things. But I think the ones that often come up are the ones that are, to me, aren't usually the biggest. The biggest ones that go viral, it's really hard to replicate. I mean, there aren't a lot of them that have happened. There's been a bunch of local ones that I've done that have went amazing. I mean, I think the Minnesota Vikings, Mattress Mac would be another one. I mean, there's so many that I've done that have went viral national, but I've done thousands of them locally that have crushed it, that have never made it nationally, right? And so the national ones actually have not done as well locally. But if you're not in our markets, you would see it. You're like, wow, that's the most amazing thing. I can't believe you did that. But It didn't really move the needle locally. And so many of the local ones where it's like really ingrained in our culture and how we believe and how we think in this market, those are the ones that usually are the grand slams. The ones that when you start trying to get too big, I think you see this on social as well. People get so fixated with likes and comments and follows and trying to go viral and all these other things, when really what matters at the end of the day is that you are engaging with people that are connected to you. Because if you don't have any engagement and all you got is a bunch of numbers and a bunch of things, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Like I'd take 10 local people that engaged at a high level than millions of people at a national level that thought it was funny or thought it was creative, but never really do anything with it. I'd much rather like move the needle forward for the people in our company. And I think that's where people get mixed up, especially crazy visionaries. They try to go for the big wow idea instead of just singles all day long, right? If you continue to hit singles all day long, that still adds up to a significant amount of runs. But so many people go in trying to create this grand slam every time they're at bat, and not even Hall of Fame baseball hitters hit 1,000, right? It just doesn't happen. And so, and I've had tons of them that have went wrong. I mean, I remember the one that I thought was going to be the greatest thing ever. It was actually right before I created the other one. I put together 9 different shots of me. So this is way back in the day. And I wore different suits and all the other crap. And it said, I sell a home every 9 hours. And it was 9 photos of me. And I thought it was going to be the greatest thing in the world. And no one cared except for me. Except for me. Except for me.
But
right?
I bet a bunch of agents loved it all over the country, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's like, wow, that's super creative, but it did nothing. It didn't move the needle at all in our business. And so what I've learned about all of this is so much of it is really long term. It really is, right? A lot of the deposits that you make today in people might not come back around for 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
A long time. I mean, some of the feedback that I hear about our brand and the things that we've done along the way are things that we did a long time ago. It's fascinating, the human brain, how so many people retain things that we did 5, 7, 8 years ago. And I know that because I know what I write and I know what we put out there. And so when people say like, oh, are you still doing this? Or how's this going? I'm like, and in my head, I'm thinking, wow, that was like 6 years ago. And they still remember it. Right. So it is just a everyday. I mean, you got to get comfortable being bored because it is a lot of the same repetitions every single day. And, I think everyone's always looking for where's the easy button? How do I just skip the line? And some of the stuff is just, you got to do the work every single day. And a lot of people say the same things in different parts of being an entrepreneur, but it's true. Like you can't just all of a sudden overnight go like, I'm going to be this mega superstar in this industry, in this area, but I only want to do steps 1 through 3, not the other 2,000 steps.
Right. Dude, good. So about being innovative in marketing, and I think you're kind of an outlier to this question, and I'll tell you why. It talks about being innovative, but in your market, I think you are the innovation. Right? I mean,
correct.
How do you stay ahead of everybody in your main market?
Yeah. So of course, everyone's trying to copy everything that we're doing. Right. And so now it is less of a concern to me than it was when we were earlier on our journey. Because what's hard to replicate now, anyone could go out and say like, he's saying this, here's his program, here's his call to action, here's how this looks, here's how this feels. But what they can't replicate is the brand around me as a person, the personal brand. They can't replicate that. And the reason why people create personal brands and local hero type, strategies in markets is for trust. And so when we roll out something new with the awareness that our brand has and the trust, there's no one else in our market that can roll out the same thing and have the same outcome. They just can't do it. Right. So I'm less worried about like trying to stay ahead because like, I think the thing that the reason why I don't have much hesitancy there, and I'll tell you why. So we're really dialed in terms of understanding who people are. We ask a lot of questions. We have a lot of assessments. We have an entire massive process that goes into this. I am an off the charts visionary on every single assessment, questionnaire, quiz, test, exam, whatever you want to give me, I am going to break the rules of what vision looks like. I am like every one of them. I mean, I'm like arrows off, like we don't have a measurement for this. right? Which is a lot of positives in that. And there are some things that I have that are shortcomings too, right? But from a branding and idea and trying to stay ahead, no one's going to beat me there. They're just not going to. And I think what makes me unique is that having high vision, but I also have high execution. Most idea people, high vision, don't have execution. And so they just spin up ideas and there's plates spinning everywhere, but nothing really gets finished. It doesn't. I've watched it. I know a ton of people like this. Like, it's just like the artist mentality of like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And everyone's got whiplash and everyone's dizzy. I'm not saying that I don't create a lot of ideas and discern on a lot of things that we're doing to make them better, but I also am very self-aware of like what done looks like. But very few people ask that question, right? Of like, hey, we've got an idea, because most visionaries don't want to see it to the end. They just want to lob things out there and hope that someone else will finish it. So, but being self-aware of that, a lot of the things that we're doing, the reason why we originate them is because I'm in that vision seat, and the marketing and branding I have not outsourced and leveraged myself out of. And so that is the seat that I should be focused on that. What I should be focused on is the ops and the reporting and the analytics and all the other things that come with it. Do I understand all that at a really high level? And is it super important? Yes, 100%. I just want the high level. I get it. I understand it. But I am a vision person that is going to create things and I'm going to get them done. But I also have that educator at heart, because that's what I went to college for, of like, I'm going to learn something from this no matter what happens. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to implement that in. And so I think what I found is that a lot of people that are in the team leader, broker, owner seat right now aren't visionaries. They're really not. They might be great executors. They might be really good at running their business, but they can't originate anything because they are lacking on the vision. And so what happens is they try to get into this. This is what I was sharing earlier about coming into someone else's backyard. You don't go into someone else's backyard unless you are full of vision and execution, because you're likely going against someone, if they've been super successful, they know how to get it to the finish line. And so just dabbling in that is, I think, important. So sort of a long-winded answer to that, but I think all of those pieces play a role in it. Going out and saying like, I'm going to do this if I'm not the right person is a mistake.
Dude, so good. So good. I freaking love it. So a couple of years ago, we were standing in Vegas, you and I, and you said, hey, you got to work on your personal brand and not depend on all these different lead sources that you don't own. What are your thoughts about that today?
Yeah. Well, it's coming true.
Yes.
In a crazy way. I mean, look at the
argued with you when you said that, dude. I said, no, dude, I got it. You were right.
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is I think there's a couple of things. Like, one is it's expensive, right? I mean, I think if you're looking at a lot of these lead sources out there that you had mentioned that are charging referral fees, and in the current state of how things are, it's hard to maintain profitability to run that business. Now, is it a great opportunity to grow your database and to expose yourself to more people in your market? 100%. As long as you're able to diversify and that isn't your main source of business, and you've got a brand and you've got other things that are going on, well, then at the end of the day, all you're doing is cost dollar averaging, right? So if you're paying more in referrals over for this bucket of leads, but you're paying significantly less here, you average all that out, and however it shakes down in the bottom line of your business will help you maintain profitability. The issue I would say that a lot of people are facing right now is they've scaled their entire business on a lead source that is now charging a fee, right? And so that's super dangerous. And now they're sort of stuck in a spot of where they've grown their business. They need more things to run that business. But because there's so much coming off the top, they don't have the bottom line to go create a hedge around a personal brand or other lead sources or things that are not as expensive. And so now they're sink or swim. They're all in on whatever these lead sources say that they're going to pay whenever they want to say they're going to pay it. And they're going to continue to charge more and more money until it breaks, right? Because they're the one that originates the lead. And so for us, like, we've been super self-aware of all these lead sources. And I'm not saying that we don't have some that come into our company, but we've also been focused this entire time on building the brand, which we've never taken our foot off the gas on, because the branding aspect for us is so much bigger that we don't need any lead source to succeed. If all the lead sources went away, like we would be in a really good spot. But for a lot of teams, I mean, you go through real trends and you want to take like the top 100. I mean, you might as well, remove 75 to 90%, maybe even more of any of the volume that they show there because they own none of it, right? They own none of it. They don't have any of the eyeballs. And so it's created a false sense of success that is a recipe for disaster of where we're headed. Now, for some people, maybe they've got a strategy where they're going to earn and make enough revenue that they'll be good when it goes away. But I'm skeptical because there's just too much coming off the top to run your business profitable. If you're doing the right things, it's too challenging to do. So I think it's really important to have a little bit of both. But I've always believed that from a marketing perspective, like you have to have your own customers, you have to have your own eyeballs, you have to have your own impressions. And so many people that went on that other route of paying for the leads, essentially what's happened is they've outsourced their marketing department. They don't have a marketing department in-house. They're paying, 30, 35, 40, 45% outsourced to another company to get those opportunities. Whereas for us, like, because we have such a high level brand, we're bringing those opportunities in. And if the one positive I would say in a lot of those companies is they send opportunities over, they're lower in the funnel. And the reason, because they're getting paid more from the agents where they can charge a referral fee, they're going to give you the people that are more mature and they're further along on their home buying and home selling journey. So the one positive is they do transact and convert faster than incubating and planting seeds on the personal branding side, right? That's going to take a lot longer. So if you look at it from a velocity of capital and how fast you're getting cash back in the door, as opposed to planting seeds and playing the long game on the marketing and branding, personal branding side, there is something attractive about that. The problem is it's just too expensive, right? It is just too expensive. And so the economics of running a real estate team are shifting drastically. And most teams, they don't have profitability. They don't have the right strategy to take 40, to lop 40, 30% off the top. They don't have it. It's not there. Right. And the other thing too is that the turnover is really high because the agents aren't earning enough either. Right. When you're taking that kind of money off the top and everyone still needs to get some, it's very difficult. And so I think you're going to see over the next couple of years, like you're going to see like what the result of some of this stuff ends up being. Right. I mean, I think what agents, I look at this often, like what agents are working that type of business with that amount coming off the top? Like, are they trained and equipped to do all the things that a team leader when they first started their business did and know that they should do? Right. And can the team leader put enough focus there? Can they hire enough people to manage that? Right. I mean, I know what it requires to run our business today. Like taking 40% off the top to do the same things is simply not possible for most people. It's not. And so is the consumer getting the same level of experience? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on who's in the driver's seat of that team leader spot. But it's not gonna end well. There's no way it can. There's just not enough margin there. And of course, the team leader still wants to maintain a profit. So they're not reinvesting all the dollars that are left, but there really isn't enough to go around. And now you add in that, the sales cycle for buying and selling a home is extending, right? Because there's low inventory, interest rate challenge, all the things that are going on in the world. Now you've got agents that have to work those leads and appointments for longer and for less, right? And so when you look back to 2021, where things were transacting, it was a crazy, and the sales cycle was very short. That's lengthening. It's getting longer. And so the longer that gets, that means there's more work and more pressure on the agents to transact that business. And you're seeing costs and referral fees go up. So the margin is shrinking and the amount of work is extending. And when those two things continue to go that direction, it is a recipe for a disaster at some point.
Absolutely, dude. Yes, all of it. And I remember, oh, dude, I'm good. You were so right. I didn't listen. So thank you for that advice. You should have shook me a little bit back then, but hey. So final question. What advice do you have to anybody listening to this right now?
So I think the most important piece of anything that someone in entrepreneurship is going to do comes down to focus. And I've learned that lesson the hard way more times than I care to admit. And what Sunit just said is simply the same thing. You didn't focus. on the things that could have really changed your business today, right? When you say like, hey, if I would have done these things, I've had a ton of them, right? Because there's so much information coming at us that we think we can do everything. And when we're younger, we attempt to do everything. I can do this, I can do that. I'm going to go to a conference and take 75 things and I'm going to roll them all up by next week. Right. And so like but the focus aspect is where the magic actually comes from. And what helps with that is prioritization. Right. So when you're looking at, the list of things that you can do, the question is, should you do them? Right. And so as you're looking at like, this is the trap that I've fallen in often of like, there's a lot of things I can do now with what I've learned. And every single day, something presents itself that is very attractive. And so the first high vision person, first thing I think of is like, let's go. And then I'm like, okay, like, let me process this. What does done look like? Can I actually get this to the finish line with what my team has on their plate, with what I have on my plate? And in a lot of cases, I'm like, I can't do that today. I want to. I know that I can do it well. I just don't have the resource. I don't have the bandwidth. And I have to put it on the long-term list of things that maybe I'll address later. And then what I do is I revisit this often. And like, am I still as excited about this idea as I was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago? And more often than not, I'm not. Right? I'm not. I'm like, oh, I was so excited about this. And then down the road, I'm like, it's a good idea. It's not a great idea. And I'm also like, I'm also a galvanizer, which I can get people really excited really fast. So inside our company, I can sell something really quickly and good to a lot of people. Like, hey, this is going to change our businesses. I mean, and I basically drove us off a cliff so many times throughout my journey, right? Because I didn't think through what done actually looked like. I didn't have the right level of focus. My team didn't have the bandwidth, and I didn't prioritize properly. And so what happens is I was just sheer force. And I found a way to, in a lot of cases, to half-ass get it done. But in my heart, I knew I was like, that isn't really done. Right. So now I ask myself the question on the front side of like, what does done look like? And by the way, for anyone that has vision to ask that question, it sucks. Because all you want to do is hit the gas. Like you just want to go. Right. And just slow you down just a little bit will make such a huge difference. And so I used to think that, branding and sales and marketing, all this entrepreneurship, I used to think it was all the shiny ideas and things and like, how do I get this idea over here so I can, fast pass the entire thing. And then as I've learned the things that I just all shared right there, we can all do. Like they're very basic fundamental level things that each person can execute on what I just shared, which is so different than in the early days what I thought success looked like. I thought it was like, who can just stay ahead? Who can get the next idea? Who can innovate and just spin everything up? But pretty soon you realize you've created an entire tornado. And most people in our company don't operate at the speed that I do. Right? It's that, which is by design. And so I think it is really important to remind yourself that, your passion level or what you think done looks like isn't necessarily what your team thinks done looks like. Right. And so we're only as good as our team and the people inside our organization that help us get things to the finish line. If we just keep grabbing more and more stuff and piling on top of them, they start to fatigue because they don't feel like they're winning. They don't feel like they're winning because nothing's getting to the finish line because you just keep inserting more and more stuff. And so I would just caution everyone right now, now's the time to do less and do it better, not more and do it average. Right. So you don't need to do 100 things. Like take one thing and own it and do it well, and then move on to the next. Just like I shared at the beginning of my journey, like I got really good with a small amount of people at farming. And then I started adding in local events and signs and in-person things and social media. Like I slowly added those things. And I think that's a reminder for everyone is that so many of us that are in a broker owner team leader spot can get going really fast. Right. And so that's where we're most vulnerable. Is when we start really running fast and we're in the hype stage of conversations and podcasts and events, and we're taking on so much information but we really can't execute on it. And so I would just say this is a good time to hit the brakes a little bit and really prioritize what matters to you and to your organization.
Dude, so good. So different from every other answer that we've ever gotten when I asked that question. So good job. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
If somebody wants to learn more about you or send you a referral in one of your main markets, what are the main markets so everyone knows?
Hey, Minnesota and Western Wisconsin are our main markets.
All right. If somebody wants to follow you, learn more, or send you a bunch of referrals in Minnesota or Western Wisconsin, what should they do?
Yeah, connectwithkl.com. It has all my social media handles on there, which I all manage myself. And so, you could send me a message on there, and I'd be happy to connect on anything, really, even referrals or questions or thoughts. Or I get messages all the time from people looking for advice or whatever, and I'd be more than happy to help and provide any insight that I can. If I can give any information to anyone listening today that'll help them maybe not make some of the same mistakes that I did along the way. There were a lot of detours and speed bumps and turbulence. But I also would trade it for anything because I got the opportunity to learn from it. But I think if I can help anyone not, go off the cliff as many times as I did, I'd be more than happy to.
Oh, dude, your DMs are about to explode after saying that. So good. Guys and Kris, I really want to thank you so much, man. Every time we hang out in whatever kind of setting, it's always education. So I'm super grateful and so much value that you bring to me personally and my businesses. So thank you. Everybody else, I hope you got something out of this. Like I said, I know I did a bunch. If you did, please share with a friend, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Reside Platform Podcast.